from platform to platform, hopefully seamlessly. Okay. Um, and just playing around. And I think it can happen. I honestly think um, it it will happen, especially with the help of AI and translating some of these graphics from one platform to the other. I know I'm generalizing and probably moving too many topics too quickly. Apologies, but I will say it can definitely happen, and it's gonna be a really nice metaverse. So we are starting to see the glimpse of the metaverse already, although somebody might say, you know, you're so wrong because you had Second Life ages ago, and we had PlayStation tried to do a metaverse years and years ago, and so many other platforms. I mean, I remember IMVU, and I even had a girlfriend in IMVU before I even known what a girlfriend meant, actually, right?
To Mo. Mo, do you have a question?
Oh yeah, I was thinking I founded it, but it still also came to an end. And now those creators are able to hopefully take their assets to other platforms or learning and realizing again where you get that leverage from doing so. And so, but to answer Adelia's question about if we think it's too early, I also wanted to share from the buyer's perspective or like the consumer's perspective, because I think a lot of us are builders. And that's why you even say, you know, looking at a platform when we're looking at where we want to build and kind of call our home. But we also rent our metaverse spaces. And so I would say we are pretty early because when I'm looking at like, you know, at the market of people looking for a metaverse space, it's not a huge market that's already there. It's more so you're trying to onboard people. Or there is a small market of people that are interested in getting into the metaverse and then, you know, looking for somebody to do it for them, or they're looking to do it themselves and learn. And, you know, you've got these two different groups of people that are entering the metaverse, and that but that is also very small. And then even smaller when again it starts to talk about like people's purposes. And I think that especially when we talk about the different platforms, as each platform will serve a different purpose. You know, different people like different aesthetics, and will be coming to the metaverse either because they have to work, because they have to shop, because they have to go to school, maybe they just want to run around and fly around the metaverse. But I think you know, that will even continue to grow, and each of those audiences will expand. But I think right now, because we are early and have so many different audiences, each one within itself is pretty small in my opinion.
I before go to Adonis, I just wanted to address on like very fast some points on it. So for the outspace, it's such a good and terrible thing. So Microsoft bought Allspace actually, and originally it was as hot as VR chat, and everybody was building in it. And after it got acquired, it kind of like only stopped at giving demo this type of level, and then last year they just shut down the whole company. So it's gone because of the whole economy thing, and the metaverse just be like, oh, we're shutting down each department, and that's kind of like telling the world that big companies doesn't believe in it economically yet. So that was pretty sad. But I'll let Adonis express his opinion first.
Thank you very much. A really, really good point. I want to talk about that later. But is it more? I hope I'm saying that correctly. Please correct me if I'm wrong. 100%. Okay, got it. So I think you're so right, Mo, and I wanted to say that, in my opinion, the friction points for smaller companies, brands, influencers, you name it, in order to be in the metaverse, if you're not a 3D creator, they're so high, which I can stand, I can, well, somebody can argue against it if you say Fortnite and Roblox. But anyways, so what I would say is, if you're a brand, right? If you're a smaller brand and you're not Nike, you're not Adidas, and so on, the friction points to be in the metaverse, they're so high, especially with some of the metaverse that you need to have land. So number one, go and acquire land. Number two, what are you gonna build with it? So you need to go to a 3D creator, but at the same time, in order to have a really cool activation, you need to have a coder as well, to write code for you, or scripts, or whatever you might call it, in order to make your activation much more interesting. It suddenly ramps up in price, and it suddenly ramps up in difficulty, and especially if you're a brand that this is not your cup of tea. So let's say you're a more of of a a brand that is retail and has an actual store, to now be entering the tech sector and to be entering so deep, there's so many friction points and it's hard. So I think if we have a problem with the metaverse, and saying that we are too early, probably you should be looking at, okay, what are the friction points, what is stopping people from actually entering the metaverse. And probably that goes for mostly for web3 companies, because if you look into the um, would you call them Web 2? But if you look into Fortnite, or if you look into Roblox, that are considered metaverses but not open metaverses, um, they already have the numbers, right? They already have the amazing activations from smaller brands to bigger brands. I don't even know how many monthly users Roblox has. I think it's 65 million. Um, and the same goes for Fortnite, a bit less. But what seems to me is like, we're saying, is the market there? I think the market is. I think we're just making it difficult for them to embrace it. And maybe we have a lot of platforms that look, sorry to say that, half finished. I mean, you have an amazing platform, Fortnite, and suddenly they open the creator tools and you can create on Fortnite, and so many people are rushing to build over there. And you have Roblox, which you could say sometimes the graphics can be boxy, but they have so many things you can do, even and become a creator, that is so easy. So it seems to me like maybe you're not too early, but maybe you just put obstacles ourselves, probably in the Web3 space, when it comes to having a smooth metaverse that stops a lot of brands from actually embracing it.
I totally get your point. And just to, I did the research on Fortnite and Roblox. So Roblox have 40 million active users monthly, and 70% of are under 18 years old. And a lot of them are actually building their own game so that they earn the money. It's called Roblox, like the Roblox, similar thing. So they have their own coins that they can actually earn money with, and then you can change it into like fiat and something. And they have a lot of um, Gen Z working, playing on that platform. And also same as Fortnite, the platform that you're saying that creator are able to create their own game is called I think it's Unreal Engine um, editor platform, and that one is very popular. And I think there is a different the like okay, this is also something I am curious about. So we always say game and metaverse. So game, a lot of gamers actually hate metaverse. They hate this term. They hate whatever it represents, like and all Web3 and crypto related things. They think game is like way more advanced than metaverse, which according to the current situation, it does appear like that because all the metaverse platforms are not as highly rendered or as highly technical like all the games that's created, especially by the Epic Games, those big companies. However, I feel like when we're talking about metaverse, it's more of an idea where you are free to do anything in this virtual space, and it has to be immersive, which means we have to like include all the XR, VR, AR, mixed reality, whatever, all the XR facts inside of the metaverse setting so that we can actually feel like we move from just looking at the screen on our mobile phone into a real digital space where you can feel like you're actually present in that space. And I think for me, that's more of the concept for metaverse and gaming. If you look at the current try metaverse wannabe companies, right? There's so many metaverse wannabes, and what they're doing is that they create this space, virtual space that can be displayed on VR, AR. However, there's no activity happening there. There's no game happening there because they want to differentiate themselves from the games where a lot of things are happening. There's a storyline there. While metaverse is they're trying to say you can do anything here, but let's just say if I tell you, hey, you can come to this place and you can do anything there, you actually don't know what you're gonna do. So you actually need a storyline or you actually need a purpose to be in a certain space, be doing something. And when we're starting to create that storyline or when we start to create that purpose in that space to trying to do something, it turns into the direction of building a game. And then that's where it confuses me when I don't know like okay, so what are we actually doing in this metaverse? What shall it look like from like what's the starting point for us right now? So I'll give Mo a chance.
Yeah, I think you guys made some really good points. Starting with Roblox, because my 5-year-old actually plays it, and that's one of the examples I always tell people because it fascinates me that I was surprised when he asked me to play it because he's homeschooled, so I'm like I was confused how he even knew about it, but he's also very into the digital world. Goes to virtual school, YouTube, all those kind of fun things. So when he asked, I was in support to go check it out, and I seen it was literally what we were doing, except for all these kids were getting paid and understood how cryptocurrency can be in the metaverse. And you use the spaces and pay to use the things in the space and earn and can create your own space. And one of the things that's really important or interesting I want to say about Roblox, though, is the value of that, right? And educating these people on like cryptocurrency and them earning their own and using it in there because Gucci sold a bag in there that was more expensive than it was in real life. So again, when we talk about that value and like digital versus physical or like what what money even means, what one robux equals to $1, and again how it even starts to shift people understanding the value of the dollar and how to accumulate that, I think is important. And it's going to be interesting that this next generation is already coming in understanding that. So when they're going into these spaces, it does play a big part. And to Adonis's point, which was a lot of these platforms are half finished. I know one of the first metaverses I went in was Neos Metaverse, which I love. I think it's really cool, open source. You can get into everybody's files, really dope. But it was such a learning curve to get anybody else into there. And as being the first metaverse, having to tell somebody they had to download the software. And then if they had a MacBook, they couldn't, or they kind of could, but they would have to go do this whole long way to download it, kind of thing. And then when you bring in your avatar, you got to rig it yourself. And they were just always, trying to onboard people. That was not the most efficient way. Whereas there's a platform like Spatial that we have been on, but it's half finished. They're updating every other day, and I get nervous to have an event in Spatial because I don't know if my audio is going to work that day, if my space is going to load that day, or if I'm going to have a successful event, or if everybody's going to load and it's going to crash and look like a bad event in the metaverse now, still to this day. So I think there is still that conflict with more advanced games that understand the space, understand what these platforms need, but also needing the technology too. Because even when I was on those bigger platforms, you have to have a gaming laptop. You have to be able to process. And especially Adelia, touching on the metaverses that have like storylines, most of those are built on Unreal Engine, and it's just a whole big plot, and you just kind of immerse yourself in that story, which again takes a bigger processor. So I definitely think there's a lot of different learning curves, especially as creators being this early.
Yeah, totally. I actually bought a new laptop just for creating some Unity games, not even Unreal Engine. You couldn't even run Unreal Engine on a laptop which its RAM is less than 64. That is actually crazy because there's no laptop actually having that much of the RAM. And also, besides RAM, you also need graphic card, and you also need like storage. You also need a lot of things. Like basically, when you're running Unity, Unreal Engine, then you're not doing anything else. That's actually create a big barrier for all the gamers or all the creators are trying to get into the space. So like we have to say there's bad and good. The good thing is that oh, it looks amazing, it looks exactly what we want. The bad thing is like the entry is pretty high. So let's go to Adonis.
Yeah, I had a couple of points. Oh my god, I need to get a pen and paper to. So many interesting points are getting revealed right now. Number one, Adelia, you said before, if you don't have a purpose in the metaverse, what you're doing. Once upon a time, I was speaking with an architecture professor in Cyprus, and and I was like, "Look, the metaverse is amazing. You can do anything you want." And then he stopped me and he's like, "Yeah, if I give so much freedom to my students and tell them they can create anything they want, they're not going to create anything," he said to me, because it's too much freedom. And I think that's what happens with a lot of these metaverse platforms. It's like, there you go, an open space, and you can do whatever you want, and then nothing happens, right? But then at the same time, which I find really confusing, is the fact that you have Roblox. And technically, no there's no mission in Roblox. What's the mission of Roblox, right? Nothing. What do you do in Roblox? You find a game and then you play within the game. So technically, you could say that Roblox has no mission, but then the mini games within Roblox, each one of them have a mission, and then Roblox could be perceived as a metaverse, and then you have an amazing metaverse because every little metaverse within it has a mission, right? So just to create an open space and say, have fun at it, I think you're missing the point. And I think what a lot of these fake metaverse platforms that you were talking about were actually doing, missing the point. Number two, more you said something really amazing about your child, right? And finding Roblox. What I'm thinking is we're talking about if we're too early for the metaverse and our children are already in the freaking metaverse, right? So it sounds to me like we're having a grandma grandpa talk over here discussing if we're gonna be in the metaverse, and we're missing the point that the people that are actually going to be using the metaverse are already in there, right? So are we should I say are you feeling old yet or not? And I say that to everyone who's in this conversation here. Is like I feel old sometimes. Like I'm talking about if the metaverse is here, and then the kid down the street is already in the freaking metaverse. Is like they don't even know what that word means, right? And I wanted to throw something new in the mix because Adalia, at some point you mentioned about, what's the difference between a game and a metaverse, and in a way you were alluding that a 3D immersive experience, that's what in a way metaverse might be for you, which is totally right. So what I'm thinking is June the 5th, right? When supposedly, and this is a big if, Apple is coming with their big headset or whatever it might be. Who knows? They might release it. It might be that everybody is simply talking about something that doesn't exist. How does a headset from Apple that can supposedly run all the iPad apps already? So we're talking about millions of applications over there going to change what we're talking about right now? Is it obviously it's gonna be something ridiculously expensive, and it can mean two things in my eyes. It can either start the full revolution of the metaverse, just like the iPhone did for, you know, our smartphones, or if it doesn't catch up, because sometimes Apple failed as well, um, although not that many times, then it could be said that if it doesn't catch up, it might be the killer of the metaverse. And it might take us a lot longer to embrace that 3D interactive space because obviously it didn't catch up. And if it doesn't catch up with the biggest company out there or one of the biggest, it's gonna take forever for other brands to bring it up to speed. So all I'm saying is, what's gonna happen on June the 5th if they come out with that headset from one of the biggest brands out there, one of the best ecosystems that are out there? It's gonna be expensive, but it might be the trailblazer. It might be the shining beacon that we need for other brands to actually follow and create more headsets and more virtual and more immersive games, and it can revolutionize the world, and then everybody might start speaking about the metaverse again. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. And I think it will help no matter what. Just because, like you said, it's like brand recognition. I'm not gonna say it's gonna like flip, flip a switch, and then everybody will all of a sudden be in the metaverse. Because I think I haven't done too much research on their goggles, but I think, or not their goggles, but their headwear. I think when it comes to Apple, again, it just makes the masses see what we're doing and take it serious. Like, oh well, if Apple's doing it, then that must mean something, right? And I think the big powers that be, I would say, in a simple sense, have all strategized themselves, right? Where it's like Microsoft came out with their new headwear, or first Meta, changed their name for Facebook to Meta to again help this cause. Um, you know, uh, Microsoft dropped their new headwear right before Christmas, so a lot of people went and got, that's what was on their Christmas list. So if they hadn't had it before, that's where they did get it. And now Apple, who, we're used to Apple having these big releases for new iPhones or new watches, like even their watch. I don't think everybody ran and got a watch, the next day. I think some people are really hesitant. Like, why would I buy it? I have to charge it. Who wants to charge a watch? I got to buy a charging port. There was a lot of pushback until people finally caught on, and now basically everybody has a watch. Well, not everybody, but there's a large community that loves their watch, right? And they do everything with their watch, and that's growing. So I think Apple knows it might be that same thing where not everybody is going to go and grab it, but it's going to set a
I still
precedent.
don't get Apple Watch. I mean, I got one just because everyone tells me, "Hey, now you can display your NFT on your Apple Watch." I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Let me get one." And then since I got it, I haven't used it for a whole year. I just don't know like why am I using it? Like I don't
Exactly.
get it.
I think it's the same thing like you said though, right? Like it has to have a purpose. Like some people use it because they want to track their watch, their steps, or it tracks like all your heartbeat and like everything about your life, kind of thing. Or like you said, to display your NFT. I know. I used to really like it because back in my day when I was working as a host, I would see all of the girls use their Apple Watches as like a texting. Like they would be able to text on their phone right there, and I'm like, man, that's so cool. I wish I had that. But that was just something like again, I think it's just purpose driven. But I think with the headwear, again, it's going to be more of that niche. There's that community, and people might become more intrigued by it. Maybe I know I don't use anything made by Microsoft, not because I'm against Microsoft in that sense, but if it came to like getting an Apple phone or a Android phone, I would go for Apple phone. So if I was looking at headwear, maybe there's a conscious buyer who just buys everything Apple, right? So again, maybe it would just help all of our metaverse mission because Apple has theirs as well.
I honestly think Apple is using it as a marketing strategy where they make you think that certain type of people at a certain social status will use Apple. So if you want to be recognized as those type of people in a certain social status, then you have to use it. At least back in like the Asian countries, like in my motherland, where it's China, and my mom will be like, "Hey, like now in Shanghai, and people are start to use Apple. If you don't even use Apple, they don't even go to lunch with you." I'm like, "That's ridiculous. I'm not gonna buy it just because of that." But I still got it. The reason why I got it is just because I don't like to fix things, and Apple kind of make everything like you don't need to do any changes to it, and you can just use it very easily. I like that part about that design. But regarding to the marketing part, I think it's really tricky.
I totally agree. It's definitely a social status. Like I use Apple for everything, and I think I've heard Apple will have their own metaverse as well, and it'll be that same thing. Like you have to have an Apple headwear to be able to use it. Because I've always been like wondering like why can't Apple like some metaverses you can't use a MacBook for, because you have to download specific software in order to be able to make it compatible with Apple. And so again, I think Apple does set those precedences. But like you said, once you are in that, it does make it easy to connect all your stuff, which I think is also a big part of this whole like digital revolution is connecting all your things. So I think when it comes to Apple, they're gonna want to hold all that data, all that information, and it be within their system.
That's actually totally against what we were talking about, the interoperabilities. I see Sixilla commented the interoperabilities. Like we wanted to be able to jump between different platforms, but ironically, a lot of good business strategy is to make things exclusive so that you cannot easily get access to. And now we're talking about if we want to build a decentralized metaverse in the future, then we're not going to rely on the single platform like Meta or Apple only. We wanted to be able to jump across different metaverse for different purposes, even for different mini metaverse, for different like mini games, just for like you can use the single identity across different metaverse. Then like if I'm Adalia spatial, but if I'm someone else, Mona, then when I jump over, Mo would never recognizes me. Like that's kind of interesting perspective. But for me, I would like to be, oh, let's jump from spatial to Decentraland directly for the same event, just different venues. That will be something making more sense to me. But I don't know how it's gonna turn out as if all those business geniuses are doing.
I have this idea that, because we're talking about the Apple headset, first of all, I'm going to say that I have an Apple Watch Ultra and I do have a belly. Okay. And it's not because you have an Apple Watch, you become fitter. And I've learned that the hard way. And obviously, my Apple Watch is somewhere in my drawer and I use my traditional watch. I'm not going to lie. I kind of like my traditional watch. I do love the Apple Watch, and I probably do buy everything Apple. I'm gonna say, but maybe not the watch yet. I don't know. I like some traditional stuff as well. But I was gonna say about the headset and about this interoperability that you were talking about and so on. I don't think this is how I see it, right? Instead of Apple creating the metaverse now, I don't think that's the case. Apple is creating a new means to experience their content, which is their apps and their ecosystem, and a new way to work. Now, what that means is a platform like Spatial, which already works on your phone and already works amazing on your iPhone. Well, not amazing, but really good, could actually be working on the Apple headset just like it does on Oculus, which could be really cool. But at the same time, you could go on your browser on Oculus and jump into Decentraland, and then that web page, which obviously it's a game and you walk your character over, then it becomes more immersive. I think if Apple just does that and doesn't involve themselves with them building the metaverse, because simply if you have a headset, that doesn't mean you have a metaverse, right? And then it becomes a really interesting proposition. It's just a new way, a new means of experiencing platforms that can be the metaverse. Suddenly, for example, Roblox becomes even more immersive because it's not on your screen now, it's in your eyes, which is technically a screen closer to your face. But maybe it can become more immersive and maybe can become more 3D, and maybe you can have a new wave. Work with me now, this is a dream, but maybe you can have a new wave of websites that are more 3D and more around you rather than your 2D website, even if it tries to be 3D. I'm trying to explain it as best as I can. I'm limited by my language, but what I'm saying is that maybe all this headset does, especially if they do it like in the form of here's your iPad apps, now they're on your face, all right, and you can experience them by moving your hands and touching them, for example. Uh, what that means is the websites can change now and they can actually become 3D and you can walk through them. So you go into a store, let's say ASOS, we have that in UK, I'm not sure if you have it everywhere. So let's say you go into Nike, for example, right? And then instead of just scrolling a 2D, form and going down until you find what you want, you know, walk through a virtual store, all right? And they become the actual catalyst to kickstart this new era of websites that can be part of the metaverse. And it actually makes sense because technically your internet is your metaverse, but in 3D, right? So with this headset that has the ability of an iPad, for example, and the ability to see in 3D and in front of you and be immersed in it, they don't need to build the metaverse. They just need to kickstart it like that. And you're gonna say, but Adonis, why is it different to Oculus? Why are you so excited? And I'm gonna go back to it. Oculus needed to create a new software system, and they needed to create new apps in order to make it work and make it enticing. Now, if you have a headset that taps into the biggest ecosystem out there, which I might be lying because it might be Android, but anyways, with the most apps out there, okay, that is Apple, and they all work in front of your eyes, technically a screen glued to your eyes, right? Suddenly you have the biggest metaverse in a way, or you kickstart the metaverse. And that's what I'm really excited about. And that's what I think it's not gonna be a flick of a switch like Mose, but it's gonna be slowly the beginning or the first initial stone towards, going towards that dream of the metaverse, like Ready Player One and so on, or that solid step, let's say. That's what I think.
Very, very interesting stuff right there. I think we are definitely can see that. And I see Six Ella made it up to the stage. Glad to see you here. Whoop, whoop. I'm glad you seen we were having it early. I was like, oh, I gotta send it to her so she knows we moved the time. Glad you did. And you hopped in before. It was funny. You hopped in before I even sent it. So I was like, okay, we're all aligned. You're here, and we would love to hear what do you think if we are too early for the metaverse, because I know you're in it. You definitely know the tech side, the consumer side, producer side, and I know you've got your own vision. So we would love to hear what you think about our today's topic.
Hi. Yeah. Love the topic. I love you guys always have great questions and conversations surrounding those questions and these wonderful thought provoking spaces. And I love that we can get together and talk out loud about this because this is as the humans that are early in a lot of this, right, in the Web3 arena, metaverse, AI. I think it's really important for us to do this so that we can figure out, what works best for us, what our needs and our wants are, and what we may need to ask of companies to do for us and for like the rest of society as they start to trickle in. And with this particular question, are we too early for the metaverse? Yes and no. Like, I kind of feel like for those of us that are here, we're right on time. Like, we're early, but like we're right on time. Um, I think we're needed in this sense, whether you're a developer or whether you're on the consumer side of, enjoying the immersive spaces. Or maybe you're somewhere in between where you're doing something creative in it, or you're gathering people and bringing them into it, right? So I think, for those groups, like we're right on time for it. But a lot of other industries, businesses, and just the regular average Joe and Jane, it might be too early for them, right? And part of that is like cost. Like, the Oculus headset is probably the cheapest one. It is the cheapest one, right? And it's definitely at a price point that they're losing money on for making it so cheap, but it's also more accessible now. If you think about like 10 or 15 years ago, I'm not quite sure about the timeline there. If you wanted a headset, you'd still have to like shell out thousands of dollars in order to use such technology. So it was very exclusive, to certain industries and certain people that had a niche interest in that industry. And now it's more readily available for us as consumers to use and partake in. I think the one thing that maybe people, businesses and individuals working on this need to keep in mind is that it doesn't have to be game oriented. It can be something else. There is an artist who he creates these amazing, like 3D, experience, like artistic experiences. And then he created this, put them in VR, and he put them up for free for people to enjoy. So it's something like I'm going to go do, once I make time to do it. It's funny that I say that, right? Because you guys mentioned the smartwatch, right? The Apple Watch, and I too fell into like the pit trap of thinking this watch is going to make me so much cooler. I'm going to lose weight. Like, I'm just going to have my life all together. I don't know if you've seen that like TikTok video go around where that guy is like, I just feel like everyone that has an iPad has their stuff together. Like, that was me with an Apple Watch. And I wore it for like 6 months or so. And then recently, something weird happened to my health, long story short. And I was having like heart palpitations and blood pressure issues. And like, I was just watching it on my watch go crazy. And that was not helpful for me. So I ended up calling, I hate that this is me confessing this on a recorded space, but like I ended up calling 911. And here's the thing, at the end of the day, if you don't feel that well, regardless if you're looking at your Apple Watch or not, then yes, it's good to go. Kept asking me like, what ambulance came there, all the EMTs and the firemen. And I don't know about you guys, but where I'm from, they're all like the jocks that like decided to become, EMTs and firemen. So they really weren't helpful. And I know that they meant to be, but they were getting on my nerves. And they're like, were you looking at your Apple Watch? Were you looking at your Apple Watch? I do that too. And that can like freak me out. I'm like, oh my God, you guys. Yes, I looked at it, but I was already having issues. And then I was asked that same question in the hospital as well. So it almost like having certain technology doesn't help you get taken seriously in certain situations. But yet we still have it. So it's just kind of navigating all of that. And anyways, to bring it back to like wearing a VR headset and making time for that is it's true. Like, I have to like make time for that, right? Like, is the space that I'm going to be in, is it clean enough for me to move around, or do I have stuff? Do I have shoes on the floor? Do I need to move a table out of the way? To be able to enjoy that immersive space I'm about to go into? Is the headset charged? Do I feel well enough to go into it? Because I am sensitive to kind of feeling a bit woozy when I wear the headset. And that possibly is because I already have health issues like migraines and stuff. So, it's a nice to have. And I think that's probably why it's going to be slower for people to fully on board with it. But I do feel like it's going to get to a point within the next few years where it becomes a normal thing to have, right? Like, you have an iPhone, you have a smartwatch, whether it's an Apple Watch or it's an Amazon, Fitbit watch. These are just, a tablet, right? People have tablets and iPads. So I think this will be a normal thing to have in your household. I don't think people are going to live in this dystopian future where you wear it, for hours upon hours a day. You physically just cannot. But it is worth it to have to enjoy certain experiences. And those experiences vary on the individual. Just like for me, it would be that art experience.
Thank you for sharing that story. That's so interesting to talk about your Apple Watch, and like you said, almost having like too much information, right? And it's like, especially when you're already trying to figure it out yourself, and then like you see what the numbers are, and you're like, okay, I already know. And then like you said, also, when and then you've got your stuff to back it up and still are questioned by others. It is ironic that instead of it being like supporting details, that it's more looked at as it trumps your initial what and it becomes, like you said, it trumps that. So that was really interesting that you shared that. And I definitely think it's also good to for us to think of it just being normal, right? Like just having these headsets and it not being like the whole world has changed and everybody's now just wearing headsets and we're in the metaverse 24/7. But it's like, you just use it because, there's a concert in there, or because it's game night, or, you like we watched the movie all together, one time for our Twitter space there together, and, different experiences or purposes. And I think that's been a really great theme that we've been talking about today, is like the purpose for why we would even drive people into the metaverse. And so Adonis or Adelia, whoever would like to pitch in next.
Just real quick before Adonis. Sixilla, I don't know if this is gonna help, but Trump once said, if we don't talk about COVID, there's no COVID. So if you don't look at your Apple Watch, there's nothing gonna happen to you. And it just like reminds me of like, we're given so much information without the knowledge of consuming the information. I don't think that's even a good thing for us, If we don't put on our headset, there's no metaverse. Okay, I'll go. I'll let you go to Adonis.
Adelia, I love that quote. I've never heard it before, but that's so crazy because that's definitely some of the things I've been thinking about. Like, man, there's some people that have like never seen this digital world and have no care or idea on all of like the legacy that we're building. Like, it's non-existent to them right now. I will say though, right now. So Adonis, I would love to hear what you would like to add.
I was gonna say ignorance is a bliss, right? So if you don't know about something, you're a happy man or a girl or a woman and so on. But the other thing is, just because you started talking about Apple Watches, and I know the topic is about the metaverse, and I might be to blame with the Apple thing, I'm gonna link the Apple Watch to the metaverse, okay? So I cannot be guilty of introducing a topic that might be outside of the topic. So I was gonna say, okay, Apple Watch, right? You already have your phone. You already probably have an Apple Watch, even if you use it, even if it brings you anxiety or not, you have it. Most of us have it, right? But that Apple Watch is already tracking movement. It knows when your hand is looking upwards. It knows when your hand is looking downwards. It knows if you're twisting it or whatever, right? That's technically a motion sensor, for a lack of a better phrase. And probably I'm discounting all the other stuff that it's in your Apple Watch. What goes really, really well with a headset. Oh, a motion sensor that is actually on your hands, and it can track where it is. So it can track where you are in a spatial way, right? So what that means is you're lured even more into an ecosystem. Well done for you, Apple. You do that really, really well. Okay. And what that says to me is, oh, if you now you're actually starting to build, the ecosystem around immersive spaces. Let's not use the metaverse again. I've used it 10,000 times. But all I'm saying is Mark Zuckerberg gave us, well, not really gave us, but let's say he gave us Oculus. And then he was saying, oh, you're going to have this thing on your hand as well at some point, and you're going to be able to tap onto it, and it's going to give you the info that you want in order to be more accurate and so on. Apple already gave you that ages ago with their watch. And now, which was a low, more easy, to put into your life, lower cost, lower, barrier, is not something on your face, and it introduced it to us slowly, and then now it's in our lives, whether you want it, whether or not, whether you use it or not. Okay, everybody, or at least most of the people, have it. I've seen people which I've never expected it to have and never used it, they still have it, and they just read the time, right? And now you pair it with the headset, and not only that, the headset can do what your iPad could do. Well, there you go. You're already in their ecosystem. You already have the apps to use. You already have the motion sensor on your hand. I mean, it's already there. It's already happening. We're just, wake up and smell, what's happening. I don't know what's the term, but yeah.
Yes, that's such a good point. It's already happening. And like you said, Apple was on the first ones, like facial recognition to unlock your phone. It can look at your eyeballs. It knows what you're looking at. It has your phone. And the last piece was really the headset, to get your whole brain waves and bring it all together and to really sell you perfectly. But we're halfway there. Like you said, it's already happening. And all of this is just to it's all stepping stones into the next place. And I read before, when it comes to these larger plots, they can go on until we achieve where we're heading, kind of thing. And I did see Phantom jumped on the stage as well. So was there anything that you wanted to add or share about your thoughts on if you think we're too early for the metaverse?
Oh, I actually didn't know that was on stage. um, no, I just think that there needs to be a really big incentive for us to get widespread adoption. It needs to affect people's lives in a fundamental way. And
Ooh.
at the moment, I don't know if we see that exactly. I know, like, for example, I think what Meta was working on before was they were trying to make like virtual meetings spaces and things like that, but I don't think it panned out too well. But yeah, essentially, just I guess the question is, why would a regular person, why would an average person want to use the metaverse?
That's a good point right there. And especially that's what I was saying, I think one of those things we've been talking about is that purpose, right? What's gonna really drive people there, right? We see it's not the tech, it's not the low cost, there's no bargains, it's not like the super coolest thing. So what is gonna be that driver that's gonna get people to go? I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I be thinking it's by force, just based upon history and the masses. It's usually like a you got to go to work or you got to do school. I think when people benefit and then they start to like get everything, I think we see a lot of businesses trying to do like rewards. I think that's also a cool thing, but like you said, it's going to have to really impact people's lives and make them have to, right? Or feel like they're really missing out, really feel that FUD and get immersed in it. And so, Adalia, what would you like to add there?
I just like to add one last point. I want to be a little bit crazier. So what you're saying, the last piece was the headset. I disagree. I think there's more piece to it. For example, we probably need the suit where we can feel what's happening with the simulation in the metaverse. I'm just going a little bit crazy here because I have a friend and he's actually starting a company, and what they're doing is the touch. So when you're wearing some gloves and they're able to you're able to feel like the remote touch from so far away, from like Miami to LA, like that type of technology, and that's already existing. So I am very looking forward for the future. It's gonna be scary. There's no reason for you to get into metaverse if you're happy living the life as you are. And I think the reason why people jump into mobile phone like 10 years ago is because other people are on the mobile phone and people are traveling far away. The person they care are far away from them, and they would love to have a connection regularly with them. That's how naturally people jump on board on some new things, because it helps them inconvenience for reaching out to people they love, or have a way for them to gain more socials. I don't think social status is gonna be the most user driven. It probably gonna be revenue driven, but it probably not gonna be user
No. You know what?
driven.
Actually, on that random note, actually, I found out because I've never really been on Horizon. I've never worn a head suit or headwear piece. But they were saying in Horizon, first of all, they call it the ghetto. I can obviously say that because if it's ghetto, it's ghetto. But apparently, it's like really people use the word meta famous. Like that's what when you talk about like social and like the social status, like you're just saying, like, oh, people wanting to go in there and why they would. People feel like they're becoming meta famous in worlds like Horizon because it's built more just for socialism and socializing. So they are using that, to their advantage to become like this meta famous. And I mean, think about it. If we had the chance to become like Twitter famous at the beginning of Twitter, maybe everybody would have played their cards different.
That's a good point. I mean, like recently, this model, she was like really famous on Snapchat and YouTube, and she make an AI version of herself and asked people to pay $1 per minute to chat with her. Suddenly, she have 1,000 boyfriend, and chatting with this AI model daily. I mean, like that's how you use the power of technology to monetize from your influence, right? Like in the future, if you're meta famous, there's probably gonna be more like thousands of avatars doing something.
It is. It's going to be really interesting, man. It's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be all about attention, and I don't know. I hope people just come in to build, and it's this great space that it is now, where everybody comes in and we're building together and doing fun things in the metaverse, and doing business in new ways. But I think it's also because we're at like that enlightenment period where it's like we're all learning, and it's all sunshines and rainbows, and we've got AI, and I mean, don't get me wrong, we've got the trolls. The trolls will always be annoying, but you know. Adelia, was that you that said, "Oh damn"?
No. Sorry, I think I have another meeting. I need to head over. But this
Okay.
is a great conversation. I love it so much.
I
Thank you
agree.
guys for joining us.
That was an awesome conversation. I was never more excited about the metaverse, but also, you know, have some questions and thoughts and as to what it can do in the future. But it's seriously exciting. I think we're just starting to ride the wave of the actual metaverse. If I'm gonna use my, you know, island ways, uh, and it's gonna be a really really big wave, and it's gonna have we're gonna have fun while riding it. That's all I'm gonna say. It's gonna be fun.
It sure is. And I know Delia's got to run, so we'll be closing up this space. But I think this was a great time. We'll probably be back next week around the same time, Adelia. That's what I'm thinking.
Sure, let's
And
do
then
that.
Okay, perfect. And then if you guys don't know, we do also live stream this across Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and also on Kick and Rumble. And so I did pin that up at the top if you actually wanted to check out the replay. And that is we stream these spaces actually in the metaverse when we talk about some of our purposes. One of my main purposes is streaming content in the metaverse to get people that's in the metaverse to enjoy this kind of content while they're in there. So I hope to see you all next week, and everyone have a great rest of your day.